So, howdy there. Hope you're doing good today. I mean, we're actually still alive. That's a pretty big deal. And now I want to go through a couple of things that I've been thinking about for a while, and some really promising developments, you could say, or really beautiful options, paths, alternatives, resources, possibilities, promise. You can use many words, but it all amounts to the same, that something beautiful is calling. So I'm basically occupied with the questions of trying to discover alternative paths of existence, and ways of approaching existence, you could say plans and strategies for living, which look into the future and tries to find out if there could be some great treasures hidden somewhere. Some really great treasures hidden. And I've been looking at this very carefully for many years. It's been on a very philosophical and contemplative way. And I've gradually come to realize that there's an incredible richness of absolutely everywhere, and that includes also the paths that are available for humans now moving into the future. That because of certain things which have happened, we suddenly find ourselves in a situation where we can actually design our own future in a creative fashion, and that we can create our way out of the problems which have been troubling us for a long time. The basic insight here is that everything is one, and everyone is a part of this one. So every single small action probably matters a great deal, even though the consequences of the actions can be very, invisible, totally invisible. You maybe see only a few, short-term consequences, but the true consequences in the long run are probably immense from every single small action. And apart from that, we can also only act now. It's not possible for us ever to jump ahead into the future or travel back into the past. I've never heard of anyone who has actually succeeded with time travel. It seems to me a very wild fantasy. But we have the moment now. And in the moment now, in a sense, the entire past and the entire future is contained in this moment. The entire past is contained here in the sense that we are now existing in the momentum of history, which is moving forth with all of the memories and the habits and the momentum included. And the future is also included in the present, because the present is the creative factor for deciding what future it will be, so that we are in fact choosing our future through how we behave now. And maybe some of this sounds a little trivial, but it seems that this is actually a really important insight, because it shows that no matter what we're concerned about, the only thing we can ever influence will have to be influenced at the present moment where we are, and with the state of affairs being as they are. And there isn't any way out of this. And in that sense, it's a great simplification, because then we don't have to actually worry too much about what's going to happen later or what happened before. All we really have to do is to find the best possible way of acting now, and then later on we can decide on the spot which path to take then. And this can include all kinds of planning into the future, because if we have this perspective that we're acting always from the moment, then we can act at the moment in such a way that we open up many promising paths for later. And by opening up many promising paths for later, then give ourselves the possibility of making very good decisions on the spot. So, what is the right action? What could be a really great way of moving forward? This is always the question. It's almost as if it's the only question that really matters, because we have to answer it somehow. And we are answering it somehow in any case. So the question of what action and what way to behave and which path to move, this is something which is impossible to ignore. It will always be something we will have to deal with. So that's why I've been looking at this with somewhat fresh eyes and try to see if in the, let's say, modern circumstances of life, if there is a way to simplify this and do it such that we do not restrict ourselves for the future, but we open up many promising paths for the future. And we retain a flexibility so that we can always make the best and most informed decision on the spot, and to then have several promising paths to choose from. Okay, so the most promising path in the long run for me would be if we could find a situation where all people actually on the whole planet had a relatively great existence. Maybe this sounds very utopian and far-fetched, but in fact it's perhaps more realistic than anything else. Because if we could seriously move in that direction, then we would have a momentum unlike anything known before. Because all objective interest conflicts would be removed, and we could leverage the human creativity to its highest potential and combine forces from all over the place and do outrageous things which were never even dreamed of before. Now we can do it quite easily, since the technology has also developed to such a degree of sophistication and has become so widely distributed that there isn't really anything preventing us from doing this now. And so that's what I've been looking at, and I keep looking at it, I keep coming back to it, I keep dancing around it, and I keep wondering about it, reflecting on it, and to see what way this could happen, what would be the most solid path to some version of this. Of course, this is something that's very obvious here, which has to be remembered, is that we are here dealing with, practically speaking, infinite complexity, and the kind of futures we're speaking about can take place in an infinity of alternative variations. So nothing is decided beforehand. It is all being decided continuously. To say that everything is deterministic and decided, that's not for us to speculate in. What is for sure is that if we can, at the moment now, begin a movement towards a better future for everyone, then that will change the future for everyone, and it is absolutely certain that it will. Even if one person does so, this will change the future of the entire planet, because it is one dynamic, interconnected system where everything is influencing everything else. And of course, it is impossible to say for sure how it's going to take place. But that, once again, is not something we have to worry about. The only thing we have to worry about at any given time is to find the best action now. And if we can truly find the best action now, then the future will take care of itself. And when we come to the next moment of making the best action now, we are in a somewhat better position than the moment before. And so it can continue. And the deeper we go into this, the more intelligence we put into this, the more we can expect in ways we don't see, but we will see them eventually. We can expect that it will open up far more promising paths. So all of this is related to something that I've also been working on, which I call action theory, or you can also say information which is situational. Action theory is a good expression, and the point of action theory is to develop a language which can be transmitted by the existing means of language transmission, and which can be as actionable as possible, which makes it possible for people to share knowledge across the world about ways of organizing events in ways that are as beneficial as possible for everyone included. And there's one truly magnificent thing about action theory, and that is that if we make a mistake, which we inevitably will to some extent, we can learn from that mistake, and we can use that knowledge to increase our understanding. So we don't have to succeed on the first attempt. We can have as many attempts as we need. We can go on with this as long as it takes, and patiently, diligently make slight improvements until we really begin to notice that things really work. Now, the way they really could work would be a balanced situation, in the sense that the scenario all over the planet is functioning in a kind of way where all of the assets and resources and tools and the things are coordinated with the general movement of life in such a way that people are generally happy. Another thing here is they don't have to be totally happy. We can't expect that. It will be a relative thing. But if they can be relatively more happy and relatively more harmonious in their interactivity, this will have an incredibly huge impact in the long run. It will totally change the course of the history of mankind. There's no question about it, because as I mentioned, this is one dynamic system. Everything relates to everything else, and these very small changes will in the long run have incredibly huge consequences. So this is why, in order to maximize the chance that those consequences will actually be beneficial, the first and single most important task for each one of us will be to find a state of mind in ourselves which is as harmonious and as happy as humanly possible. Because if we can do that, then we can expect that to naturally become reflected in how we do things externally. So our own psychological state and our own attitude and way of thinking will be tremendously important. It's the most important thing of them all. Because any kind of external system will naturally shape itself dependent on what kind of psychological condition the people are in. So one of the first things which seems to be needed today is a psychological enhancement of the well-being, the psychological well-being of human beings all over the world. Mental health. And this is, of course, totally tied to physical health. So we are really simply speaking about health in general. Speaking about body and a brain and a nervous system which is working in a way which simply works well, is healthy, is sane, is happy, is functioning well. It's a harmonious functioning. The different resources are being distributed well. They are being distributed where they are needed. Not too much, not too little, but a kind of a perfect, beautiful balance. And if we can have a beautiful balance inside the human psyche, a beautiful balance will probably happen naturally in human society. And this is when we will have cascading effects which can take us to the next level of the evolutionary ladder. So that's pretty much my hope for the new year.